Vegas Circle podcast with Paki and Chris. We are the show for people who are passionate about business, success, and culture, showcasing the stories of people in their city that made it happen. On today's podcast, we're going to discuss the credit card processing process and building a successful broker consultant company with Christen, who is the COO of RAC Financial. So welcome to the circle, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah,
Look forward to it.
So first, kind of starting off, we met a couple weeks ago with Jeremy and everything. So shout out to Jeremy Siegel, who's been a guest of ours. I got a chance to meet at one of the CS events, but just want to kind of give him some love. He's a great networker we were talking about earlier. First, we want to kind of start off with how you and your business partner, Cary Flanders, kind of formed RAC. So can you kind of share that with our listeners of how you guys formed this company?
Yeah, so I'd say it really started first with Cary. Cary has been in several different industries. So he started, mortgage companies, network marketing companies, and he always saw that he had an issue with payment processing. He knew more than the people in payment processing. So he's like, I could do this better. I could teach people about this industry. And he actually started teaching people about the industry prior to us starting RAC Financial. And so after that, he decided, you know what? I'm going to start my own company. It's going to be a family-run company. Yeah. And he started RAC Financial. And once he started doing that, I started, learning more about the industry. I was in software sales at that point. And just with the bank relationships, we noticed our relationships were growing with these banks like crazy. We were able to get deals done that most people couldn't. And just really, having happy customers, happy clients, being transparent, answering the phone. You'd be surprised how many people don't answer the phone in this situation. They don't like to give bad news. Yeah. And so that's what really took off. And I jumped in after a year with Cary. And then, the business is growing like crazy. We're at doing about $3.5 billion a year in processing revenue for all our merchants, over 3,000 merchants. And it's only been 3 years. So it's been a crazy ride.
That sounds like a great success story. It's kind of, from my opinion, it seems like a very bold decision to jump into credit card processing. You have these huge players that have been doing it for a long time, and when you're trying to build that brand and you're trying to build those type of relationships, what do you think was helpful in your success by differentiating yourself from some of those other competitors that were, more established?
I think initially it's, making the customers happy up front, not being too greedy. A lot of these guys want to, help companies save on their processing fees because it does eat away at their revenue like crazy. And so we just came in, and I think just having that mindset of just saying, hey, a long-term relationship will benefit not only them, but our company as well, and growing that and having these names that could talk and refer business. And that's what I talked about earlier with you guys is, the referral side of it brings better relationships and everything like that. And people discuss with us all the time is, just keeping that relationship and the transparency has been huge, honestly. Yeah.
Did you guys kind of find, like Chris and I were talking about before we set up this interview, companies like, and I'll just say like the PayPals of the world and Squares of the world. You mentioned to me before on the phone, they process so fast, right? And then you have issues with chargebacks and things like that are quick, or people taking advantage of those loopholes. Can you kind of share, some of those kind of things that you kind of figured out to kind of make it more seamless for some of your clients?
So the one advantage Stripe, PayPal, Square, all those guys have is they auto board people. So, you could get an approval. You start a business, you want it seamless, quick, get it done. But if you can get up and running that quick, you can get shut down just as quick. Yeah. And so that's the issue. So we see two different sides. We see people that grow their business and they get to a point where they're doing $50K a month and they're starting to see these fees creep up. And that's when they start calling us and say, hey, how do I get my fees down? And there's different pricing models that we break down for these guys where we can save them, switch them to a pricing model that a lot of these big box retailers switch to. And so this helps save them a lot more money, and we help break it down transparent. Like I said, we'll break it down in an Excel sheet. So that's one. It's when they see the fees creeping up. But I'll give you one story. We have this trading platform and education platform that this guy, we've been pitching for 2 years. And you know what? Stripe hasn't screwed him. He's just happy. It's been good so far. And one day he got an email on a Thursday. You have till Sunday to find a new payment processor.
Oh, wow.
Well, banks don't work on Saturday and Sunday. What are you going to do? So luckily with our relationships with our banks and just keeping that communication with him, and he knew who we were, on that Thursday, he reached out. We got him approved in 24 hours because, I mean, imagine a trading platform that's not paying out their customers and they think it's a scam. He will lose probably 50% of his customers or clientele and just completely screw it up. So that's where, you know, it might take a little more underwriting on our end. It might take an extra day or two for us to get you approved, but at least you know you have a long-term account, lower fees, you're not going to get money held up. And it's just, once again, transparency, just communicating and telling them what we need. And this is how you should do it. And it's honestly, we're more of a consultant than anything at providing the right solution to the right industry, right vertical, whatever they need. So,
yeah, that's, you know, when you're trying to establish these businesses, because they are more of the broker type businesses, essentially, I would assume, right? Like you have somebody who's providing a service or providing the capital, and you're like the middleman in between these two transactions. You know, when you're first trying to develop that sort of business model or jumping in, like how do you structure that, or how did Cary, you know, structure that? You ever have those conversations when you're trying to, you know, build out this business model and get that first client? Because it's hard, from my perspective, it's going to be hard to sell somebody on something when there isn't that initial kind of backing. As it progresses and snowballs, it gets easier and easier. But in the beginning, that's what always makes me curious.
I think the advantage is the upside that we had is Cary's been in the industry now for 8 to 10 years, where on the banking side, we're able to get such low rates where, you know, our buy rates with the banks, we can give them better pricing and fees and we're not losing money, where, you know, it is hard when you start in any industry and you have no credibility.
For sure.
And they're like, well, you're starting at this rate. Well, now I got to compete against all these guys that have much lower rates than me. And what am I going to tell them? So we're fortunate to get the clientele and the rates that we've had based on the network that Cary was able to build over the last couple of years prior to RAC Financial. So that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, it definitely helps to be an expert in that field, I would assume, because for any other person trying to break in, it seems really ultra competitive and it seems like really hard thing to break into. So it's great that you're able to establish that.
Yeah. And that's where sometimes I wonder why some of these agents don't get more relationships with the banks and stuff. But I realize we have such good buy rates and, you know, relationships with the banks that we help the banks and the processors, and they're willing to help us, where people just getting started, it's a little hard because you're trying to find that balance. So it's definitely crucial. Yeah.
If you're a business, do you have to sign like a specific contract? Is it a year contract or a month to month or a year or 3 years? How do you guys do your contracts?
For the merchants we sign up?
For the merchants you guys sign up.
So no, that's the one thing we pride ourselves on. We have no early termination fee. We believe if we're not doing our job, you should be able to fire us. Because, I mean, our goal is to answer the phone, give you better support, lower fees, and do the right thing. So if we can't do that and it's not going to work out and you feel, hey, I got to move on, we don't want to hold anyone back, because a lot of people get caught up in these early termination fees in credit card processing where you're locked in for a year to 3 years, somewhere in that time frame, to your point. So we come across that sometimes. And if we know it's a good relationship, sometimes we help buy people out of those contracts just for a good relationship. Yeah, exactly. So
it seems to me like, you know, this is obviously a lot of business owners' mind. Like you talk about cutting fees, and, you know, having those established relationships is extremely helpful. The one thing I noticed the other day, and I know this is, I don't know how prevalent it's going to become, but I went into a business where like, we take Cash App. Don't use your credit card, Cash App me on this thing, and to try to avoid some of these fees. You know, what do you think you're trying to do to combat some of those things where they're really, it seems like, at least the first time I've ever seen it, but I can imagine it becoming more and more prevalent with the Apple Pays and the Cash Apps, and people just wanted to submit and bypass any credit card processing fee.
Yeah. So, I mean, still in those situations, they still have to use a processor in a way. They are coming into the play where with these Cash Apps, we do get a lot of people that have built their businesses off Cash App and everything. But if you, I don't know if you know, like with Venmo and Cash App, if they figure out you're a business and you start doing enough revenue, they do start marking up a fee on top of that. Where you're
just
even paying
PayPal just wrote that out. Like anything over like 500, they're trying to charge these these merchant fees on top of it that weren't there initially. So that makes sense.
So, and with all these, the tax, the IRS getting stricter and everything, their Cash App and Venmo are starting to tighten down on we're going to have our fees in place too. So yeah.
Okay, so that's going to work itself out. Because I seen it, I was like, that's definitely a workaround. I've never seen that before. It was my first time. It was very
it's
interesting.
been flooding too on social media and everything. Everybody's been talking about it with Cash App and stuff. So I think it's like $600. Anything over $600,
yeah.
you got to pay.
We see some guys, using Cash App, and it's great for them. Like people come to us and say, "Hey, we use PayPal," and PayPal does have a good platform, and some people like to use it. So you do have to be open to those platforms. But that's the nice thing about credit card processing. 80%, 90% of your consumers are going to use a normal credit card, where you might have someone that's got Apple Pay and all that, but it's still, you have the touch device that you can make a payment. So it does work out, and should be interesting with crypto here soon too. Well,
that's going to be one of my next questions.
Go right ahead and jump in. That was what we wanted to get into a little bit too, at least for crypto.
Yeah, and that's what you're starting to see more. Like instead of the underwriting through, banking, now you're seeing people running these merchant accounts or processing accounts on the blockchain with crypto. Like, what are your thoughts on kind of how that's going to work? Because I don't know if there's the same associated fees with that type of dynamic, but I have seen more and more with the marijuana industry, where they're trying to use a lot more crypto-based merchant accounts, where things that maybe a bank doesn't want to jump into.
Yeah. So there are some of these banks backing it. We do have a crypto solution right now that allows you to process payments through crypto, but then is reconverting back to, USD. A lot of companies that, are gaming or sweepstakes, in Asia or something like that are starting to use some of that stuff. So the biggest thing is, some of these banks are starting to back it because they are looking at it. But there's still the fees, because if you're going to use a credit card, debit card, or anything, there's still those fees, and the bank still has their fees. So the fees are still there and everything. But people are looking at it a different way to obviously process payments, because a big thing that people have to deal with are the chargebacks and disputes. And that's helping, verify, hey, is this really fraud and everything through the blockchain. So it's interesting. There's a lot more building to it, and a lot of people are building out solutions, and there's a lot out there. It's a matter of finding the right ones. Because I know with our crypto solution that we've been talking about recently, it's instant funding to the merchant. So it's perked people up a little bit, because a lot of people get concerned with the volatility of the cryptocurrency. You never know what's but this is instant funding, which is huge for merchants. So it's been a thing that we've been looking into and having a lot of conversations about, and expect it to grow over the next couple of years. So we'll see where it goes, honestly.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be the future. And even a lot of the banks are trying to develop their own type of, crypto blockchains for their own business models. So I would assume that it's curious if one's going to kind of run to the top and everybody's going to utilize that, or if you're going to have your different Visas and MasterCards and Discover type blockchain solutions. Yeah. I'm really curious about that.
Exactly. And that's where some of these processors are building out, like one of our processors is building out a gateway that can, translate with the crypto, so it can understand the difference between, any type of payment with USD to compare to like Bitcoin or Ethereum or something. So it's giving people more that ability. So people are developing it, and they know it's on the rise. So
interesting. Yeah.
This is so many things happening so fast, man. You can't even keep up. I was listening about some AI stuff today that's unreal with voice and everything. But just on a flip side of that too, what is some typical things you coach your clients on as far as like red flags to look for to help them kind of save on different things and save on fees and things?
Well, that's where we love to, get a 1 month merchant processing statement if they're currently processing. Because if we can show, there's a lot of numbers on a merchant processing statement, and you kind of look at it and you're like, well,
it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And there's interchange on credit card, which are the card brand fees. There's so many different numbers that's all set by Visa, MasterCard, Discover, Amex. So we can't even touch that. You got to go find the fees that processors are adding on top of that for their service.
Additional service fees.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes one thing people will tell us, I'm at 2.5%. Well, I'm like, okay, well, let me see your merchant processing statement. And 2.5% is a good rate. But sometimes you go in and you go, well, did you see this extra fee that they're charging you? over here to the side. And it's amazing how sometimes people think they know what they're paying, but they could be paying an extra 10 basis points, 0.10% over what they think they're paying. And it's like, well, what if I could just take away that 10 basis points and you're truly at 2.5%? Because I'd rather you just be happy and be with us for the long term, and we support you. So, so it's really, I mean, you breaking down the merchant processing statements, making sure they're set up the right way. Like in the high risk business, where, you know, a lot of affiliate network marketing companies, you got to make sure you're watching your chargebacks, because you get on the radar of Visa, MasterCard when it's at 1%. So our goal is to help make sure, you know, they're not having any junk come in, because I mean, some people, they lose their businesses over these disputes where it hikes up to 5% and they're like, I don't know what to do. So it's crucial to, you know, have chargeback alerts put in place for the business and everything like that. So that's another area that we consult on. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, it's just
glad you brought that when we were talking about it when we met before. That's the crazy part is people make businesses out of chargeback. And they just hit businesses, you know, out the yin, especially in Las Vegas. I mean, they just literally do it all the time.
That's a crazy thing. I mean, because chargebacks used to not be a big issue till, you know, the internet became more prevalent, because some of these keto nutraceutical companies could do 10% chargebacks back in the early 2000s. Well, Visa and MasterCard finally were like, no, we're not doing this. And so that's where it slowly creeped down. Now it's at 1%. Because, I mean, you think about a business, if more than 1% of your clients that are buying your product aren't happy and charging back, they're like, you're not a true business, satisfying business. So that's where Visa and MasterCard looks at it that way, where some people get screwed. I mean, the biggest thing in the US, and it's not like compared to Europe or Australia, is friendly fraud here. A lot of people say that they received the product, or then they didn't receive the product and they get their money back, but they have the product and stuff like that. That it's just, it's frustrating. So the merchant does get screwed. I do feel bad in certain situations for merchants, but it's all about coming up with a strategy for that.
It's interesting. So you think, so if they do these chargebacks, and so Visa obviously, or whoever it is, will reimburse the person for their lost funds, would they not go after the merchant to recover that funds? Like, why would they still affect your business to not for those chargebacks?
So they do go. So the merchant will get that money pooled. So they will refund the consumer and everything. But then the merchant even has to pay like a $25 or $35 fee on top of that. And so now they're like even losing money. Not only are they refunding for the product, but now they're getting charged to anywhere from $25, $50, because sometimes there's a return fee on top of that. And it was like, gosh, we wish we didn't even do that transaction, because now not only we're refunding, we're exactly.
So the merchant's paying it. Like, to me, that's a net win in my mind. Please, they're making money off of it for the chargebacks and all that. That's
what I'm saying. They're so sophisticated. I was reading about so many different people and all these consultants, like you were saying, that literally their coaching is looking and kind of like spying on making sure that the online transactions are legit. Like, that's their whole business model. So it's kind of scary, man.
It really is. But I feel like it puts people in such a precarious position to be like, you know, how, like you said, you're afraid to make a sale at some point. It's like, how are you really going to trust the buyer? Like, you might go out of business because your buyers are not, legitimate or doing things the appropriate way.
Well, that's where you'll find businesses will start auto refunding. If they see any sign of a chargeback, they will auto refund, because it will save them a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Because if it goes to dispute, so you almost want to try and beat the consumer in that situation, to be like, okay, I think they like something went wrong here, auto refund. So there's a lot of systems being put in place by Visa, MasterCard. Like there's Ethica, Verify Alerts, RDR, which help combat those chargebacks.
Oh, okay. That's good news. Good news.
There's
some sort of options out there.
Other than doing the referral and like kind of affiliate kind of business plan, what other ways do you guys promote and advertise to kind of get RAC's name out there?
It's truly just been through the referral agents and their networks. That's one thing that, I mean, I'd say that's 70 to 80% of the business. And we love it. I mean, honestly, we've tried marketing here and there, but you do come across some scams. You know, we've had some points where we figured out a company had stolen credit cards. Well, then you're getting $20,000 worth of chargebacks, but no, they're not paying it anymore because they're gone. So that's the only hard thing about marketing in this industry, because the underwriting and pre-vetting of these accounts. But another thing that we do a lot of, we sponsored Women's Series Formula One with Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when it comes to marketing, sponsoring, we do a lot of the things. We're big into the car area.
Okay.
So we love Formula One, Women's Series with Caitlyn Jenner. So we did that last year. This year we'll be on the NHRA Tony Schumacher drag racing car.
Oh, wow.
8-time world champion. And he used to race with the U.S. Army. Now he's with Maynard Racing. So RAC Financial will be on the car there. So just honestly, yeah.
That's big names here to be able to drive that traffic, especially for Formula One is huge.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. So I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting any others, but that's crazy. I mean, the NHRA, we've gotten a lot of connections through there, talking to people, because if people show up for an event and then they're talking to you, being around something they enjoy, and then talk to you, it's honestly been a good source that we've been pulling a lot of things from. But other than that, I mean, it's amazing, the referral agents, the networks, and talking to people, and the relationships have been the biggest part of this.
What do you like about like the Las Vegas market?
And there's so many different businesses, and people come here to network. We're here for
100%.
Affiliate Summit right now. And so you know, and I mean, not only having podcasts here, I mean, there's tons of influencers as well. And that's where like online coaching is huge, trading platforms. So things that are e-commerce online, those are huge. And it's amazing, honestly, as we've been talking to more of the networks, when we went to Sean Kelly's event and stuff,
Sean, good dude.
It's amazing how many of those guys have businesses online. And they're like, well, we would love to talk. And it's a lot better when you can have that in-person conversation. Because if I were just to call them, they're like, well, what can you do for me? So it's been good. Once again, the referral and networking, honestly, So this is a good market, because there's always events going on, and good to pop up here from Scottsdale.
I'm glad you said it, because it's so funny. I remember hearing this probably back in the early 90s, mid 90s. I remember when Bill Gates was talking about like high tech, high touch. And it's like you have to be able to touch and talk to the people and build those relationships. You guys have done a great job with that in the last 3 years. Being able, you can see the numbers are flowing. So it's kind of like the world is your oyster right now, which is exciting.
Which is amazing too, on top of that, because we started, you think 3 years ago? It started during COVID.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you started right. Oh, that's right. I saw that. March of 2020.
So I was a little concerned when they first got started, and then all of a sudden I jumped on not too long after that. It's crazy. But as we grow, the more and more we meet people, then they're willing to, refer business. So it's been amazing to that point. I agree. It's just amazing how much it grew over COVID, because a lot of people concentrate, we can still meet over Zoom and that's the new way. But still, I think meeting in person is so much greater. I mean,
I'm so happy you said that. We're going to talk offline. Right? You know I'm going to laugh. We used to do, I'll just say this real quick, is during the pandemic, we went Zoom. And I hated it, but he loved it. So that's why we always laugh all the time. So I love being around the energy of the room. You know what I mean? It's way funner for me. So
I like a good mix. I like the mix of both. Personally.
I think you do need to have a mix of both.
I know he's going to say that.
Half and half.
No, you do. I mean, especially because people's schedules. You can get so much done more on Zoom too, and Teams.
I think it's important, because what you do is like when you're in person, one thing is you can read a person a little bit easier. Versus on a phone, like you said, if somebody reaches out to me randomly on a phone, I'm not going to develop a relationship with them. I think they're trying to sell me on something.
Of course.
So then you're a lot less likely to engage in that conversation or be a part of it. So I think it does make sense to be in person. Like you get a little bit more of a rapport.
Sure. For business advice, just a little bit, just kind of on your mindset, what do you wish you would known, when you first started, that you would implement now, since you guys have been in, business for about 3 years?
It's a good question, because I mean, even over software sales and everything, and we've done a great job of, growing, keeping the network and everything. I think it's, educating probably the agents a little bit more. And that's one thing that we're starting to grow on. And the biggest thing is, I mean, I think people look at things and they go, wow, that's so easy. Like, it's crazy how fast you guys grew that.
Yeah.
And I thought that way a little bit too, because I mean, we've done such a good job. But when we explain to people and then they're like, okay, I'm going to start doing stuff, where people actually need to sit down and study. We're starting to put a program together of like, okay, watch these videos before you start coming to have questions. So I think it's really just from the training aspect of anyone new coming on board or helping understand certain terms, because we all get super busy and it's like, okay, we'll worry about that later, you know, because I know what I'm doing, or Cary might know, but this person might not know, and it will benefit us in the long term. So started filming some training videos and going to start doing some more of that. But it's, from more the educational standpoint on agent side, from the merchant standpoint, I think we've done a great job. But it's, I think, onboarding, building that network and everything.
Chris and I, we were just talking about that last night, the absentee founder, and kind of setting it up so you can save yourself time on the back end of continuing to keep asking questions, and it saves you guys time on the back end. So makes sense. Yeah.
People ask for like agent handbook and everything, but no, people don't end up reading it. I mean, honestly,
they want to call and speak to you or email you or whatever it is.
Hey, what was that again? What's the process? And I'm like, did you go to page 4? And it was like, it's right literally right there. Yeah. So that's just sometimes the case. But I mean, hey, I rather have a bunch of calls coming in rather than just sitting there. So
doing it wrong.
That's true.
I think once you develop that, corporate culture of having the resource for people to learn from, over time, you would think it would get easier and easier, and not to train people, they just self-train. Like hopefully that does get a little easier for you.
Exactly. We have a few good guys in place that are trying to do that, because I think they even see the value of it. So they'll take some of the workload off of us. So we'll be good.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
As far as Vegas is in general, we always ask our guests, what's your favorite restaurant in Vegas?
Milo's.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, Cosmo.
Yeah. Well, I think they moved from the Cosmo to Venetian, right?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yes, it did.
Yeah. I didn't know that till I was here a year ago for the Duke Gonzaga game when they were out here. And we went over there, and I normally don't eat octopus, but their octopus is amazing.
Yeah, Milo's got good food. Yeah,
that was a pretty quick answer too, so it must be good. What kind of food do they have?
It's like seafood.
It's Greek.
It's like Greek. You'd be all over it.
So they're like lamb chops and stuff are amazing.
But it's like a high-end Greek restaurant?
Yeah.
I feel like you really don't see a lot of high-end.
They used to do a thing at, back in the day when they were at Cosmo, you could get like lobster and pasta, and so they used to have good things on the weekends. Yeah, it was good, but for like a really good price. They used to do for, so good stuff. Milo's a good place, man. I have to look them up. What else are you guys concentrating on for the future? Just obviously we're just starting off 2023.
Honestly, I mean, growing what we have right now, looking more into the crypto side of things. How can we go a little more international? Because it is harder to, having a full network. We have a lot of merchants that are looking for international payments all under one roof. And a lot of people have issues with that. Now, Stripe does a great job of that, for example. But people do come across some issues, and so we're trying to tie that all together. And some of these crypto solutions are doing a great job. And then we do have a financing division that we're growing. We're slowly putting into, lawnmower dealerships, dental offices. So that's a slow growing part that we're starting to see come about, because we have a waterfall. So you could apply once, and just based on your credit score, it's a waterfall. So basically it can find the best loan for you just based on that credit score, instead of saying, oh, we don't have anything for you. So it's been a good solution. Some people have been very interested in that, just due to that aspect. Other than that, and soon, I mean, hopefully getting our own, straight bank relationships. Because we're very close with our processors right now. But hopefully down the line, having a banking relationship where we'll have an underwriting team in the future, and everything like that. But I mean, we're very close with our processors right now with the underwriting teams and everything. So it's, like Cary says, why break something that's not broken? I mean, honestly, we have a good thing going and good relationships with the executives at the companies. And that's the biggest thing too, is like, normally people are like, oh, it didn't work, where we talk to the executives and they're like, oh, we can figure out how to get this to work. So
that's awesome.
It's just good relationships once again.
Well, you guys got it, man. You and Cary, I met Cary before. He's a sharp guy, man. So you guys are great partners in what you guys are doing. So we wish you guys luck on everything. Where's your social handles that they can reach out to you on? for RAC?
So my Instagram is ColeC720. Starting to post more credit card processing stuff there. Starting to do the training videos. And honestly, podcasts. And I'm trying to start doing a lot more of that stuff. We do have a RAC Financial Instagram, which is RAC_financial. You'll see more of our racing, like Formula One Women's Series stuff on there. So you'll see some of that. But I'm going to start pushing a lot more towards my platform. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Cole Christian. And trying to think what else, if we have any other platforms. That's about it right now, Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, man. It's good stuff, man. Give some of our listeners some knowledge, and obviously all of us being business owners, man. So it's good stuff, man. So appreciate you, Cole. Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it.
Good stuff. Thank you. That was really good.